Hello, everyone. Chris Zeminski here. We're going to spend a few minutes just talking about Jamboard. Jamboard's a Google tool that's really useful for getting a lot of different people to collaborate together in a lot of different ways.
Hi, I'm TJ McKenna, and Jamboard's all the rage these days. We're all virtual to some extent, whether that be hybrid, half in person, all virtual. And so let's talk about how to really harness these Jamboard frames in a productive way. And the first thing is really like, how do I even get to it? Where is it? Where is Jamboard?
And so being a Google product, Jamboard can be shared with you just the way a Google Doc is shared with you. So you can go to your drive and you can see shared with me. If you're in a Zoom chat, someone can pop a link in the chat and you can access it that way. You can also get it emailed to you. So we're going to just jump into my Google Drive really quickly and look up at the waffle, which is up in the upper right-hand corner where we can look at all the Google apps. I'm going to have to scroll down a little bit. And then I should see this big yellow J, which is Jamboard. So I have quite a few jams just because that's what we call a Jamboard. And that's just because there's a lot of different ways to use it. But what we want to do today is really think about how to orient to it and how just look at just a couple simple examples so we can really get a taste of what we can do with it. So our jam is going to be called Get to Know Jamboard. In the upper right-hand corner, we see share. So share is going to work just the way all of your other Google products do, where we can share it with other people, give them editing privileges, or just give people viewing privileges. Right next to it, under more actions, we can see things like we can rename it. We can download as a PDF, which is a great way to share with other people when you're working on a jam. You can also download it as a PDF so you can save to have an artifact of your work. We can also make a copy, and a big one here is updates. We'll notice as we're talking about, there's a couple new updates to Jamboard. So you always want to check in and make sure you're updating your app so you're using the most up-to-date version with all the new features that Google is adding.
Definitely. And one of the things is always trying to make sure you're on the right frame. So they're called frames. You'll notice at the top, there is a 1/5, 1 out of 5. So that means there's 5 frames in this Jamboard. And you can go to the right, you can go to the left. You can see that we're on the first frame. If we want to click on expand the frame, we can see that there's other frames there. In this case, you can see that there's 5. You can see that the third one is empty. And you can see that we have things on the other frames. You'll also notice that there's a little plus sign in between each of them. And maybe we wanted to add a frame right here. We could just click on that. It would add a new frame. It would add a new window. Think about this like a PowerPoint. You're adding a new page. You're adding a new slide. Google wanted to separate those, so they call them frames. So we're going to move into our second frame and see how do we use some of these tools to make this collaborative.
Yeah, so all the tools are over on the left-hand side in the toolbar. So we're just going to use a couple of those over the next couple frames. So we have an experience using them as we're filling out one of the frames. And we're going to work through the next couple together. So TJ, question. What kind of music is there in your life?
Let's see. Let me add one. All right, here we go. I like sleepy music after being on Zoom all day. I need to retire to my bed, relax, and so I'm going to make that one green.
Yeah, and so that looked like it kind of just appeared out of nowhere. So TJ and I are both on this Jamboard, and so we can both work on it interactively. This is going to look a lot like sticky notes that we're used to using. So sure enough, one of the tools is sticky note. So when I click on it, I can also respond to this question. So I've been really into Gregory Isaacs lately, just because I like to hear that, especially as the season's changing. Where I live, it's still nice and warm, so we're sitting outside eating dinner. I can also add another sticky note in a different color. I can always go back to one of the sticky notes. I can edit it, and I can maybe turn this orange as well because I'm going to go and categorize it with TJ's. And so there's a lot of different ways we can use these sticky notes. We can add them together, and we can also change the color. We can duplicate them as well. So let's go ahead and jump in on frame 3.
So what if we wanted to create something that we could build together? So let's say we're teaching a lesson, and maybe the lesson's about predator-prey relationships. And so all of the students would be here on the Jamboard. They'd be on this frame. They're on the third frame. But we need to talk about something that we can all see. We can all have access to something.
And so I can go ahead and click on Add Picture. I can select a file from a lot of different places. I'm just going to go to the Google image search, type in predator-prey graph, and here we go. I'm going to highlight it. I can see the check, and I'm going to go ahead and select it. I can even just make it a little bit larger so we can see. Nice thing about Jamboard is if you add PNGs, they retain their quality as we're resizing them. And TJ already went ahead and added a question. When he added the question, he didn't use the sticky note. He used something new in Jamboard called the text box. So all you have to do is click on it, and I can go ahead and add a text box anywhere. And I can just say, remind everybody of why we're even looking at this, because last class we were talking about predator-prey interactions, and today we're going to start to look at an example. We can go ahead and add more questions. We can even use this tool right here, which is a circle right now, where we can add an arrow and other shapes if we want to, and we can even highlight a specific place in the upper left-hand corner. I can turn this arrow, and there we go. We can say what's going on right there. And we can even start adding other images so we can start to see what some of these organisms look like. TJ is calling out that the rabbits right at that high point of the graph, what's happening right there. And that's something we're going to want to investigate as a class.
Yeah, there's definitely something adorable happening right there on the graph. And so we got to highlight those things. And Jamboards are great. There's a lot that you can do with Jamboards, but they're not everything. You know, it's part of the Google Suite. It's really to help you collaborate over different topics. You can see here, there's a culture building tool. So you could do, maybe I break my students into a small group, and I have them do 2 truths and a fib, and they add on this jam 2 things that are true, 1 thing that's a lie. And so it is a way to structure students that, you know, maybe you have one that's in person, they're wearing a mask, they're in your school, and then maybe they're connecting with a remote student that's at home. And so this would be one way to do that. If we skip to frame 5, here we just tried to throw a number of different ways that you could use Jamboard. You can see all of the images on the bottom left that all might highlight what spring looks like for different students. The students might just go in and select different images. Top left, you can see what do you think a conductor does? And so you can see different images of the conductor and all the different sticky notes. On the top right, you can easily see how these can get kind of out of control, and tons of questions can get together. And then you need to go back to Jamboard and start to organize those. And on the bottom right, you can see how Jamboard can even be used for other subjects like math. Maybe you're all reading a book, and each frame might be a chapter, and you're having students highlight different components of different chapters that they're seeing. And so Jamboard really is a tool used for creativity and to help your students share their thinking and their reasoning.
Yeah, and one thing we can also talk about really quickly is that when you're adding images, you can add, you can pre-make templates, especially in places like Google Drawing, which is a great place to start putting maybe a model together, and then you can have students work there. You can bring those models over into Jamboard as a PDF or as an image, and then we can really work on critiquing them. We can work on identifying similarities and differences in models. So there's quite a bit we can do, especially when we start integrating some of these different Google tools or different just virtual tools in general.
Yeah, Jamboard is an excellent tool to do gallery walks and to really give feedback student to student. So happy jamming, and we'll talk more about how to use Google Drawing in one of our other videos.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.